know that she brought them. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order, please. Good morning, or good afternoon, isn't it? So we're glad you're here. If you've never been with us before to one of our advisory meetings, we welcome you. And for those of you who have been at our meetings before, we also welcome you. Good morning, good afternoon, TDLR board.
Good morning.
Including you, Mr. Francis.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Our board is here to serve you today. Obviously, we don't have a quorum today. I think I'm going to take this personal, but I'm told not to do that at this point. But anyway, we're glad you're here, and we're going to get started. So let's take the first, let's do the first. We're going to call it to order. Now we're going to call the roll. Okay, Ron Robinson, here. Anthony Anderson, absent. Claudia, absent. Natalie, absent. Mary Dot,
Here.
Alicia,
Here.
Vanessa, absent. Debbie, absent. Then we have 2 vacant spots. Okay. All right. Obviously, we do not have a quorum, do we, Miss Fletcher? Okay. So, are we still going to do we can't do the approval of the minutes,
That's
can
correct,
we?
you cannot.
So we're going to have to back off on that, aren't we?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll move on to public comment, and I believe if you want to make a comment, you need to fill out a sheet and let us have it. Do you need to take it to Tamla, I believe, first? In the meantime, can we get started? Okay. All right. The first one I have here is Virginia, is it Bird?
Yes.
Virginia Bird? Okay. Would you like to, are you going to address the
I got a
board?
question. You can come.
You need to come up here, please. If you would, give us your name, your affiliation, and the reason why you are wanting to address the advisory committee.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Virginia Bird. I'm a licensed cosmetologist instructor, interested in opening a beauty culture school. And my request was, well, my question is about the square footage. I thought maybe that I heard that you might be changing the square footage in the near future. As far as starting a new beauty culture school, it's kind of expensive to get a real big building, and all the square footage and all that can be kind of costly. So if someone's trying to start a new business, I was hoping that maybe at some point we could maybe consider changing the size that you have to open a new business.
I think we've already addressed that issue. And,
okay, this is my first time.
Okay. I really
Oh,
think
don't
that
have
that
that.
has been addressed and that square footage has been changed.
And this is my first meeting,
Okay.
so.
I guess, who would we recommend that she needs to see, Mr. Francis?
Mr. Chairman, a couple things. Number one, we'll be able to address the specifics of this when we get to the rulemaking.
Okay.
And we'll also have you talk to the Director of Education and Examination after this meeting, but we'll get your answer. And thank
Okay,
you for
thank
coming
you.
here. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you all for having me.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bird. Okay, this handwriting is so bad, I can't. I think it's Joe Arrington. Would you state your name, your affiliation, and the reason you choose to direct and talk to this committee?
Thank you, sir. My name is Joe Arrington. I come from McClendon Community College, and the cosmetology program there is under my direct supervision. Mr. Chair, members of the Advisory Board, TDLR staff, thank you for this opportunity to address the group. I attended the meeting of the Cosmetology Advisory Group back in September where TDLR shared the proposed changes to TAC 83. I read those in the Texas Register and posted comments to them back in October. I believe copies have been shared. If not, I have copies in electronic version if it'd be useful. My comments today summarize those. In my opinion, the proposed changes contains 3 specific items that merit support. They are, first, the removal of the facility-based population size limits based on population of the county. Second, the clarification of time allowed for corrective measures. And third, the linkage of successful completion, a phrase that now appears in 8372P. It should be noted that similar language already appears in 8320D regarding eyelash extension and is consistent with other areas regulated by TDLR. For example, that language appears in Massage Therapy, TAC 117, and Auctioneers, TAC 67. I support the inclusion of the successful completion language in 8372. While these three items for change we are grateful for, there's one area for which I feel I must raise objection. The proposed rules call for a single conversion factor to establish a ratio between credit hour and clock hour programs. Specifically, the 8372P rule proposes a standard of 1 credit hour equal 37.5 clock hours, and that formula should be used to translate both ways between the clock hour and credit hour programs. This method is flawed in at least 3 ways. First, the number chosen was not designed to be used to measure learning. An exploration of the use of that number indicates it exists for the sake of financial aid determination by the U.S. Department of Education. Documents from the DOE were provided on October 18th in my written comments and support this statement. Second, the number chosen is calculated in a way that violates other parts of the cosmetology rules. The DOE document goes on to state that the number not only contains time in class, they refer to it as seat time, but, quoting the DOE document, includes a minimum of 2 hours of out-of-class student work each week. The inclusion of time not under the direct supervision of a licensed cosmetologist violates TDLR Rule 8372F. That states no credit for instructional hours can be granted to a cosmetology student unless such hours are accrued under the supervision of a licensed instructor. In short, the use of that identified number inherently violates another section of TDLR's own rules. Third and final, the number chosen represents an outdated method. Outdated method is no longer even supported by its creator.
1 minute, Mr. Arrington.
The number's origins trace back about 100 years to the Carnegie Foundation. In 2013, that foundation said, measuring student learning by seat time in this educational era certainly seems obsolete. So the originators of the model that led to the 37.5 themselves no longer support it. We recognize that time is necessary for learning, but time by itself does not guarantee learning and certainly does not accurately measure it. I would accept any questions in whatever time I have left. Thank you.
You don't have any time.
I don't have any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and the next person I have here is Ms. Kim Avery. Okay.
Hello, Kim Avery from Navarro College and CCCET, Community College Educators, Cosmetology Educators of Texas. And I just have a couple thoughts I just want to put out real quickly. On the new PSI exam, a couple issues I see that I would like for you guys to look at is not timing the foil, and we all have that student that may take 30 minutes to put 2 foils in the hair. And another issue I would like for you to look at is if we do not blow dry the whole portion of the head before we perform our chemical services, it's going to be kind of messy, sloppy issue with putting mock chemical on wet hair. So if they could just, my students would automatically do it, but if it was just saying power dry the whole head, demonstrate a brush on one section. So that's it about PSI. I know the credit hour is going to be talked about today, and my concern or the thought I'd like to bring up would be that a lot of us schools that have been waiting would like to probably even implement this our January semester, mid-January. So if that's going to be possible, that we can know in a timely manner so we can make arrangements for that, or can we go ahead and proceed to that point and start our attendance policies at the beginning of the semester? And as far as like credit hour breakdown, when we're able to do that, just to tag on to the other speaker that, we have 1,500 hours, and if we're approved for it, we're showing you how we are breaking down those hours. So I don't know why 38-hour credit.
7.5.
Yeah, I don't know why that's actually needed if we're showing you the curriculum where the 1,500 hours go. And then the last thing, I know I've talked about the curriculum a couple times, and how it need to be, reformatted. And I just want to say that if we could add a little more hours to manicure, facial, and the haircut, hairstyle portion, and reduce some off the permanent wave section would be really great to get us up to a little more industry standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, that concludes the public comments. Okay. We'll move now into our staff reports. And at this time, our executive officer, Mr. Brian Francis, will give us one of his spellbounding reports. I'm sure it will not last more than 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, it'll be less than 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It'll be less than 5 minutes. Mr. Chairman, I'm Brian Francis, Executive Director with TDLR. First of all, thank you guys for being here. We appreciate it. Guys being generic and gender-free, of course. I'd like to start off, if I could, with Executive Director of Privilege. The TDLR family on October 31st suffered a major loss. Our longtime Director of Compliance, George Ferry, passed away after a battle with cancer, and it has put a hole in our heart so big. If we could, I would like to have just a moment of silence in honor of George Ferry, please. Thank you. If you recall, George was the very tall director that was in desperate need of cosmetology services with his ponytail. Also, as I told the group today, George would have been so embarrassed by that moment of silence. Just gentle, smart, kind, competent, caring, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but we're going to circle our wagons and get it done.
Mr. Francis, how long was he with the
The agency?
commission? Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, since 91, since 1991. How incredible is that? How incredible is that? I thought when I got here in 99, I would run him off, but he just wasn't that smart to leave, right? Yeah, he brought a lot of stuff, a lot of good to the agency. He did a lot of great stuff for Texans that they'll never know about. Never know about it, but voice of reason, compassion. Mr. Chairman, the other thing I'd like to report on, beginning today, and I'm going to choose my words correctly because I know I'm in a room full of cosmetology schools and I know how they get. I'll let them fill in the blank on what that means. Let me back up. So, since the beginning of time, you hear it very clearly that there is no apprenticeship programs in Texas. After my statement, that is still true, okay? But what I've noticed in my leadership role is that when a person, let's say that they have practiced for 20 years in another state, they choose to move to Texas. They earned their license in a state that had an apprenticeship program 21 years ago. When they come here, they have to start over and take the examination. I didn't think that's fair and appropriate. And so I asked the staff to do the research on it, and we identified every state, the length of their apprenticeship programs. They range from 1,500 all the way up to 3,500 hours. Every state requires them to take a practical and written examination at the conclusion of that. Those apprenticeship programs could be as short as a year and as long as 2 years. So I asked the staff to research that. And so beginning today, we will allow for reciprocity for individuals on a case-by-case basis when we evaluate their experience in their education and their examination earned. And I just think that's fair. But let me start with the last comment in mind. There's no apprenticeship program in Texas. Schools are still the only path here in Texas. But if a person's transferring in, I thought it was appropriate. So I just wanted to share with you when that goes out and the
I think
change goes
that's
on the
only
webpage.
fair.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I've got two members from the Barber Advisory Board here. One of them, he tackled me in the parking lot when I did that presentation, but he got off me pretty quick. No, we're good, though. I just wanted to share that with you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
What about from another country?
Well, already we're looking at that when an application comes in from out of country, we have that applicant send their information to, there's a couple of groups, one of them ECE, where they evaluate the academic background, the transcripts, and they'll make a determination on a.
Most of it's work experience I've
Absolutely.
come across. So.
So would they contact the agency if they, for this accommodation?
Yeah, they'll file an application, and we're going to collect transcript, how they earn the hours. We're going to confirm that's from a state that had.
That happens here.
That happens here.
Okay.
Yeah, that happens here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Is that it?
That's it. It was 4 minutes
Whoa.
and 4 minutes and 36 seconds.
That's it. Less than
Thank you.
five.
Thank you very much. Okay. So now we need to go to compliance. Is that correct? Good morning.
Good afternoon, Chair Roberts, board members. Y'all are accustomed to seeing either Brebe or Marinella doing the reports for compliance, but they were double booked today. They are representing our interests at the Image Expo in Dallas, so they entrusted me for the report. It's a brief report. Since September, we've had a couple of shows, and I think I may have seen you guys since then as well, so I'll just go through the list. We participated in Armstrong McCall World's Fair in San Antonio. Thousands of people there for the show, so our participation there is very important to help with the licensees, sale of books, and just answering questions for the public that are out there. Also, the 73rd National Beauty Culturals League was held in Beaumont on October 8th and 9th. It's a very small show, but I think a very important show for us to participate in. That was my first time attending, and Bibi and Marinella had been encouraging me to join them. I was really impressed with the enthusiasm of the students, the participants, the teachers there. It was a very nice show, and so anybody that gets the opportunity to attend the Beauty Culturals League, I would encourage them. I think they're doing good things there, and we need to continue our participation. 73 years for anything to be going on is quite a phenomenon, quite impressive. And the last one, our staff is in Dallas participating in the Image Expo. We don't have any upcoming trade shows, and our statistics are typically us helping the other divisions, whether it's a licensing issue, a customer service question that's gone a little bit different, has a little anomaly to it, or an enforcement case where they need some technical assistance. Both Bibi and Manila are there to help and assist as necessary. I'll answer any questions if I can. If not, I may need to phone a friend.
I just have one comment.
Yes, ma'am.
It's probably for our audience. I understood that your booth was very popular by wanting to sign, that they had, for students to sign, you would sign their form they had been to the hair show.
That is correct. When they come to our show, they want to get that participation hour that they earn
And we
credit.
didn't know where their instructor was.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
That's just a comment from, the instructor needs to be present, right?
That is exactly right. And
And some of that student manipulation, I realize. They
They-
just thought David should sign that. for
they
me.
are learning as they get there, and so they go to all these different booths, so the signage pointing them in the right direction, they just see a sign with TDLR
Found
on
that
it,
very
they come to us.
amusing.
Thank you very much.
So y'all would accept David's signature, is that
No,
correct?
you don't want my signature on it. That's not going to help you out.
That's why he said, no, I'm sorry, I cannot sign that.
Thank you.
Wait, I have a question. It says upcoming trade shows. Do you have the dates for those upcoming trade shows that they're going to be attending?
Not at this point,
Okay.
but I expect we'll always be at the Armstrong McCalls and the Image Expos because they're some of the larger ones, but any ones that we find out about, we try to get that in advance and we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's go to the Education and Examination Division. Rebecca.
Good afternoon, Chair, Advisory Board members. My
Good
name is Rebecca
afternoon.
Adamus. I am the Education and Examination Liaison, and I just want to personally thank the group, excuse me, the Texas Cosmetology Educators Association for having us out yesterday as part of our public outreach. I know there's plenty of them here in the gallery. Thank you so much for having us. It was a pleasure to answer any questions that y'all had for us, and it's my job. it's my role as a liaison to be out there at all of the different association meetings. So stay tuned, because I will be attending quite a few that are upcoming. A few things that I wanted to share with you that we're doing as a division. We're still continuing our efforts to help those affected by Harvey. We've had a couple of temporary schools set up, and that's something that we've allowed to happen. Thank you to our executive director for allowing that, as well as the issuance of hours to all students affected by Harvey. Our staff has been taking care of that. We've got our education inspector, who was also himself directly affected by Harvey, out there making sure that, you see his face, and that if you have any questions, he's there for you. He's there to answer any questions, to make sure that those temporary schools are properly staffed and are taking care of the students. It's been a team effort on all ends. We have members of PSI here that are also here in attendance, that we were closely on the phone with them as well, making sure that everyone was allowed to reschedule whenever they were available to reschedule, not, they had no time crunch on when they had to be rescheduled. We also had to make sure that their staff, we have quite a few PSI staff members in that location, to make sure everybody was accounted for. And, it's kind of PSI, going along with believing in our same core values. They took care of their staff. They made sure that their staff was accounted for, and that even on days when they should have been in the office, but because of this weather, they weren't able to go in, but they were still able to get paid. So that was, something that they did for their staff as well. So it's just kind of full circle, as hand in hand in the partnership with our vendor, to make sure, one, our examinees are taken care of. They can reschedule at their convenience, that there's no pressure on them to hurry up and, I have to take my test. Whenever they're ready, they can call PSI to reschedule. And that their staff, that it's going to be there proctoring and rating the examination, we're all taken care of, so that everybody's relaxed when they go back to work. So we're just happy to report that. We're doing many different, outreaches with Raymond, making sure that anybody who needs him at their school, if they've got a question, they can ask myself, they can ask anyone at our staff. We just want to make sure everyone is taken care of, hours are posted. Just be patient, we're working on it. If you have questions on that, please see us afterwards. Also, we do have the memo that was sent out to the schools. Another thing, we want to make sure that everyone listening and in the gallery has their most current email address on file with us, so that when we have the open houses for the improvements to this PSI practical that we are administering, that your invitation is received via email, and that you know when we're going to be in a city near you. So,
I do make comment that some people didn't receive the email, and our addresses were corrected at TDLR, so that still worries me to a certain degree, but I'm going to make sure I update it again.
Yes.
It's there.
Yes.
And I don't know, but that was on the recovery email that went out. There were a few of us that did not receive it, and it was at my school and my sister schools, and we did not receive that. So it concerned me why we didn't receive it and other people did not receive it either. So, but we will check and make sure our emails are up to date.
and it could be a firewall issue.
That's what we were told,
Yeah.
but we checked into that, and there was no reason we should have not received that email.
That's true.
We're
Also,
investigating.
Yeah, for sure.
also, will they get will they mail them an invitation, or will it just be through email?
We can look at mailing out invitations as well, so that there's that hard copy.
I just know that sometimes, like, if, with an issue like that, if there was a hard copy, then there wouldn't be an issue. That might be something. I know that's an expense. However, that might be
We can
something.
check with PSI. I know that somewhere on there may be a link to respond, so that we know, like an RSVP link. But the ladies are definitely here also, so that you can also make sure you give them your email address, so that they also will have it, and they can send out that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
Of course. Anything else?
Nope, I'm just looking. Do y'all have any questions?
I don't, not at this time.
Was it for me?
Good. Okay, well, thank you.
Had an easy one.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay. Enforcement.
Good afternoon, Chairman Robinson and fellow advisory board members. My name's Kim Davenport, and I'm a prosecutor with the Enforcement Division, here to bring you the Enforcement Staff Report. And to follow the agenda, I'm going to start with the statistics. As you probably know, the cosmetology program takes up a large portion of the department's caseload. Regarding cases opened over the past year or past fiscal year, they make up about 28% of the caseload in terms of complaints. For cases resolved, that's about 26% of the department's caseload. In terms of agreed orders that are obtained regarding the cosmetology program, that's 40% of the caseload here at TDLR. So it's a great portion of the program, and those are agreed orders, so those are situations where the respondent and the department have come to some sort of agreement in regards to that specific issue. Regarding the penalties, in terms of penalties assessed, the cosmetology program takes up about 20% of the penalties assessed of the entire department's programs. And in terms of actual penalties collected, it's 31%. So we're very successful in this particular program in getting the penalties collected that we've previously assessed. Now, regarding the case highlights, I just went over, I picked about 5 cases. 4 were agreed orders, and 1 was a default order. And these are violations that are pretty typical that we see in the Enforcement Division for this particular program. I would say over all the cases that we had since your last advisory board, the majority of them were agreed orders where there's been an agreement. There's not a lot of default orders. Most of these were as a result of inspection cases. As you can see, the case highlights, we see unlicensed activity, failure to properly ventilate a salon, failure to properly sanitize implements or different tools, as well as the Whirlpool foot spas, and also failure to properly cooperate with an inspection. All the particular cases that I highlighted for you that you have were first-time violations. I will say, with the exception of the default order, all the penalties have either been collected or are very close to being collected. There's one on a payment plan that's almost complete as well. In terms of the cases since your last advisory board meeting, I would say that very few of them are coming from consumer complaints or anonymous complaints. We had a few revocation of licenses by operation of law because of criminal incarceration, just a couple of those. And there were a few cases by the Education and Examination Division that were referred to us, but the majority are from inspections. So, do you have any questions you would like to ask?
Just for clarification
Yes.
purposes. Now, what is the default order?
A default order is when we send out a notice of alleged violation regarding whatever we have found after an investigation that was a violation. And the respondent has received that, either they've chosen not to go pick up the mail, or they've received it and never responded, never asked for a hearing, and never attempted to resolve it with the department.
Okay, so what happens?
What happens is, after we have sent them that notice, we give them a certain amount of time to respond. If they haven't responded, and we make sure that they either have received the document by the U.S. Post Office or that they chose not to go get it, which shows up unclaimed. At that point, we'll send a notice of default saying, this is going to be an order that's entered against you if you don't get back with us. So we give them another chance to respond. At that point, if that date has passed, then we'll submit a default order to the executive director, and they review the file and decide that the default order, if it's warranted in that case.
Till it's what?
If it's warranted, to go ahead and sign off on it. But basically, we've met all our obligations to do what our best is to try to get either some sort of response from the other party in that case.
So sign off on it.
They basically sign the order, issuing the order of the default.
So does that mean that at some point they could possibly never pay this?
A default, they can't. They may not pay it. However, holds are often put on their license. So if it was a facility and they had, let's say they had a $4,000 default order against them, there would be a hold placed on their license, and they may not be able to do anything on their license. Also, if they don't pay a penalty, we may move to revoke their license.
Okay.
So we do have other measures that we may seek, but we try to get them collected and do that first before we go to the revocation talk proceeding.
That's kind of the way I was thinking that there had to be a point where you have to revoke this license.
Yes, at some point we do that, but we try all our measures to get things in compliant and to educate, but sometimes we don't have any choice when things don't get paid, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay.
Kimberly,
you very
before you
much.
leave, Mr. Chairman, so it's a very good question, and so I'm sure somebody wrote that question for you. On the default order, the process, but as you're aware, there are
5
three,
minutes, Mr.
there are three,
He only has 24 seconds left from before, right?
that's right, that's right. There's 3 categories of orders. So as Kimberly talked about, you have the default order, and it just means the person's not playing. They're just ignoring us, and they're just not going to come to the table. The agreed orders, overwhelming majority of those are handled through that process. I'll sign those. And then you have the commission orders. That's where the person's like, hey, I did not do that. I'm going to hearing. They go to the hearing
Okay.
with SOA, and then that order goes back to our commission for final deliberation. So you have a small percentage of those cases that go to a commission order level. I know in the past, maybe last 2 months or so, I've signed maybe 6 or 7 agreed orders with schools on their hours, on just, whether it was a mathematical error, that they put hours on there where the student didn't have them, or they didn't put the hours that the student had earned. So there are a few of those school items, but those typically come up, as Kim said, during the inspection process. We get a lot of attention on the agreed orders. You also see an escalation based on the penalty matrix that the advisory board has put in place. First-time offense may just be $500. The second-time offense for that same thing within a certain time period could go up to $1,500 to $2,000, depending on that escalation. And we'll see that. And I think the enforcement staff does an incredible job of working through a lot of complaints. But it's a small percentage of our licensee population.
Well, I know, having looked at the agenda for TDLR, their meetings, I have seen where there were cosmetology situations, or barber too.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Field operations. Well, hello. Miss Tanya.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Tanya Guthrow. I'm the Director of Field Operations. Our folks are the ones who do the inspections for the establishments. Our first item on our report are the most common violations that were found during inspections for the last quarter of the last fiscal year. Under Division Projects, you know that we suspended establishment inspections in response to Hurricane Harvey. And during that time, our Houston staff and our East Region staff did administrative work and also various ways to help support licensees during the after effects of the hurricane. So Cam 2, our East Region manager, presented TDLR's response to Hurricane Harvey, both in the Vietnamese TV in Houston and the Dallas radio for Vietnam. And our inspector, Ulysses Osio, presented TDLR's response to Hurricane Harvey on Univision and Telemundo. And this was these were just a couple of items. The staff did many other things. I really want to give a shout out to them for all of their support to licensees and to each other. Also, we started back doing establishment inspections October the 16th of 2017. We've added a Plain Talk inspection reference guide. And you can find this on the cosmetology page. If you look on the right-hand side of the page, there's a link for forms, FAQs, rules, and law. And then you scroll down and click on Cosmetology Establishment Reference Guide. And it really is just our inspection guide, but it's in plain talk and hopefully will be a way for establishments to stay out of trouble. I'd also like to welcome 4 new field inspectors. We have Suzanne Creed in our DFW area. We have Kwong Hong and Lindsay Wren, who have started in Houston, and Angela Sanders, who's out of Corpus Christi. We also have 3 open positions. Those jobs are all based in our DFW area and the positions closed on November the 8th. So we're looking forward to doing those interviews very soon. I'd also like to commend our folks. Given the fact that we couldn't do inspections in the Houston area and along the east coast of Texas, we did really good on our statistics in the first month of this fiscal year. So if you have any questions?
Okay.
No? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, I guess we're now down here to the licensing division. Is that who I think it is? Miss Joyce here? Now, we're going to have a lot of questions for her.
Good afternoon, Chairman Robinson, Ms. Rivera, and Ms. Lindsay. I can call y'all about name. It's not many of you this time. First of all, I'd like to give you the numbers for the license that were issued under our military provisions, and these are the numbers for fiscal year 2017. For cosmetology operator, there were 78 licenses issued. Cosmetologist manicurist, 5. Esthetician, 19. Operator instructor, 2. And manicurist esthetician, 1.
Excuse me, Joyce. Will you tell us who you are?
Thank you. Sorry, guys. I'm Joyce Hennington. I work as the manager in the licensing division. So sorry. Okay. Let's see, what else do I have for you? Okay, for fiscal year 2018, which started September 1st, 2017, we've issued 10 operator license, 1 manicurist, 3 esthetician, and 1 manicurist esthetician under the military provision. For the Hurricane Harvey victims, we waived 1,636 renewal fees, and we waived 691 duplicate license fees. Also, due to Hurricane Harvey, we extended 8,187 licenses for an additional 60 days beyond the expiration period, and that was through the end of September. Do you have any questions for me?
Not at all. You? Okay. Thank you, Joyce.
Sorry, next time I'll remember my name.
Well, we knew who you were, don't we?
Thank you, Joyce. I appreciate you so much.
Okay, discussion and possible recommendations on work group reports. Anything you want to comment on the education? Sure. Do you want to share with us anything?
On the Education Committee, we've been working, as Mr. Arrington testified or talked to us about, was working on credit hours and the conversion. It's my understanding that we're working through some procedures to make that align seamlessly to the hours that we have now. So we're hoping that that will come in effect, we're hoping soon. And but we have been to Austin, and I work on that committee a couple of times, and we are working now to align that so that the clock hours and align the credit hours. I foresee that coming in the short future.
So,
Yeah, I will. Just to add to a little bit of what she said, we have been diligently working on this, and we did take time just a few weeks ago, and we have looked at it. We feel like the 37.5 is what we did.
Well, it aligns most straight alignment with our time clock.
Right.
And that's why we've been looking at that as to how we can move to time clock efficiently, working with the credit hours.
And I'd just like to say this, is that this is a choice. This is not something that you have to do. This is a choice. If you don't want to do credit, you don't have to do credit, bottom line. And it is a choice if you want to do it or not. It's, no one's making anyone do it. And so that, you know, if you're doing what you're doing and it's working for you, there's no reason to have to redo something.
But I did want to make one comment that's very important to all of us, is that the ideal of successful completion has been at that table every time we talk about
Yes.
this. And we are going to be working to make sure that there's a way, some kind of equation that successful completion is integrated, and we all know how important successful completion is. That's integrated into whether a student gets completion credit for the course. So it's so very, very important to us.
And I would just like to also, we're just feeding back off of each other, but we worked really diligently on this, and I know Ray's coming up here. He was with us as we've been working on this. We have looked at it. It has not been taken lightly. I just want everyone out in the gallery to know that we did look at it, and we are continuing to look at it. And we want to do what's in the best interest of everyone.
Ray Pizarro, Director for Education Examination Division. I was in the peanut gallery when the work group was meeting. So I just want to let everyone know, we listen to what the work group has to say and listening to where they're trying to head. And part of the due diligence of the department is to make sure that students who are taking a course at a licensed cosmetology school successfully complete the course as required. We, as you guys know, who are the schools out here using shears, we have created shears and have implemented tools to ensure that the hours that are recorded are granted to the school. So as we move forward and you hear Mary and Alicia talking about the credit portion and successfully completing it, we are going to apply certain tools to the shears program to ensure that that person has completed that course in accordance to the school. Again, we're leaving it to the school. Remember, just like we currently do now, we're leaving it to you instructors to tell us that these students have completed the course. So we're moving in that fashion. And as Mary was saying, the 37.5 was a tool utilized so that we're able to make that conversion seamlessly and also still allow those schools who are in federal grants to get those funds that they need. Really, we're going to be using that conversion part to help align shears on when we do conversion. So, Ron, if you're a credit hour school and you're going to enter credits, like say 7 credits, you're going to enter into shears, we will do the conversion on the back end. So it'll be converted into hours, and that student will be posted those hours. So if that student wants to move to a different school, you're going to see the hours posted. Those are kind of the ideas and what they've been talking about in the meeting, and we're some of our staff there listening to make sure we are capturing the goal behind us.
And that was, to add to your comment, one of the most important things that we worked on was that a time clock, a student
Yes.
would be able to transfer from credit school to a time clock.
yes.
That's correct.
We
With
had to
easy
take that in
transition.
consideration
Right.
because, some school may say, no, you have to start all over.
Right.
We don't do credits here. We only do clock. We've got to have a transition in there.
Yes.
We've got to work hard to do that.
Right.
So
And remember
that it's fair
that,
to
yeah,
every student.
that is correct. And that law did say,
Right, and the law. It's the
conversion
law
from
that we
back
have
to
to,
forward, yeah.
yes.
I have, along with that, if you are, before all this came about, if you were a credit hour school, you had been approved. I know you've been through this again, but would you restate it? Do you have to reapply at this point or anything if you decide to remain a credit hour school? I mean, we've had so much turmoil with this, and I was just wondering, like, for instance, the school that I was formerly with, we were a credit hour school. we had submitted to TDLR the documentation that was
Correct.
necessary to become.
2012.
Okay, yes.
So let me paint this vision. If you're currently a credit hour school,
That's okay.
we're not going to make you submit any new documentations to be the credit hour school. However, once the work group have put into place how we're going to proceed, and Colleen will present once those rules are completely adopted, then we're going to go to the school, and Rebecca Armas will probably be one of them out there, the liaison, educating those credit hour schools. Hey, this is how it needs to work now, because remember back when we first started this, we didn't have authority. Remember that? It always had to be on seat time. But we made that leap of faith that, it is successful completion, but that wasn't the outcome. It was always, the law always talked about seat time. So we will get to that point to educate the schools, but no, we're not going to make the schools file a new application to become a credit hour school. Now, there are some schools who reverted back to clock hours, as you guys know.
Right.
They didn't want to deal with the credit until it was fixed, right? So I assume those schools are going to approach us once the new format is out and what we decide to do to reapply and try to and go back to the credit hour version of it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay. All
Thank you,
right.
Ray.
Thank you, Ray. Okay. Wait just a moment. Okay. The next we need to do is number G, right? Discussion and possible recommendation on proposed amendments, right? So we don't have a quorum, so we're not going to be making any recommendations.
Hopefully it'll all go smoothly.
How are you, Colleen?
Okay. Colleen Tran, Assistant General Counsel. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So while we don't have a quorum and we can't do an official recommendation, I would like to have the conversation about the public comments that came in and look and go through the reasonings and why we did or didn't make any changes accordingly because of that. It's a good transparency for everybody to know, and they did submit their comments, and it should be presented to the board. So let me know when you're ready. We're good?
Go for it.
I put together the chart in front of you. It has the section of the rules that were proposed or that were commented on. The middle section is the comment summary, and the right-hand side is the analysis. So the first commenter raised several issues. I summarized them as they would like to see a refresher course offered. They would like to use the professional designation, and they would also like for cosmetology operators to be allowed to instruct using alternative means like DVDs, tapes, or other mechanical means. They also felt like the fee for those who are 60 and over should be lowered. All of these were not any of the proposed rules, so no suggested changes are going to be made. I did respond to them as in refresher courses. CE providers can currently create a refresher course. They just have to cover the topics. The professional designation, there's nothing in law or rule that keeps them from designating themselves as a licensed cosmetologist if they should so choose now. The law clearly states that you have to be an instructor to instruct and not just a cosmetology operator, and that is 1602-251. And our Chapter 51 states that we have to do an analysis and set fees to cover our programs, and we do periodically look at them, but at this time there is no fee change for 60 and over. And there was a final comment there on this commenter. They wanted to be able to practice wherever the need arises or exists, was how it was. They don't want any restriction on where they can practice. And the 1602-251C provides that they have to provide services in an establishment, or there are those provisions for specific, the quinceañera parties or something like that. Two commenters submitted comment on extending the 3-year prohibition on renewing an expired license to 5 or 8. That is also statutory, and that's in Chapter 51, so that is not about our proposed rules. So that can't happen here, and it has to be a statutory change as well. On page 3 is the comment concerning the clock to credit, credit to clock hour conversion. Miss Alicia and Miss Mary, y'all saw this already.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
And I sent this comment over to you guys to review, and the determination was made that 37.5 is still a good conversion for us to use. And that's also mandated by Senate Bill 2065 and 2738 to establish those standards. And so we have to establish the standards. This is what the work group has worked through, even with the comment and concerns raised. So no change is suggested for that. 7 commenters don't agree with having to have human trafficking information as a part of their continuing education. Unfortunately, House Bill 2552 requires that human trafficking information be included as a part of their continuing education, and so no change was made to that rule.
Colleen?
Yes, sir.
Brian? I would drop the word unfortunately.
Oh,
I would just simply say that that's what the law requires.
it is what the law requires.
Continuing education requires.
It's unfortunate for those 7 people who don't like it. For those 7 commenters.
That is accurate.
Yes.
That is accurate. I apologize.
Okay.
I didn't write that question.
Oh. And then the last comments are on page 5. One commenter raised specific concerns about the safety in their workplace. This was not about a rule, and we have forwarded this on so that they could be contacted and the issue could be resolved. One commenter raised 3 different issues. The first one is about rule. They referenced in 83-10-21 they thought was incorrect, but in fact it's just mirroring the fact that shampoo and conditioning were removed, and so now they had to shift the references, so that reference is correct. They didn't like the wording use in a specific section 83.25, and that was it's basically, we had 2 requirements and we put them on 2 lines. They wanted it all on 1 line. That's just a stylistic drafting change, and they raised general concerns about our inspection process, and that comment was also forwarded to the appropriate division for review. The last person asked how they could pay for their renewal, and we forwarded that comment on so that they could get that taken care of. That was not about the rules. There was no change. In the final 2 comments, one commenter raised concerns about unlicensed practice and selling licenses or borrowing or renting licenses. That comment's been forwarded on to the appropriate division for review and action, but that's not about the rules, so there's no change. And the final one is the link that they were sent did not work, so we sent them a new link. That wasn't about the rules, and there were no changes there.
Back to the shampoo issue, I believe that as it stands, we still teach shampooing
Yes, sir.
in the curriculum,
Yes, sir.
in the schools, obviously.
Yes.
But as far as a salon owner hiring a shampoo person, they may train that person to shampoo and condition only. Is that correct?
Shampoo and conditioning are not practices of cosmetology, so it does not require a license for somebody to do shampooing and conditioning in your salon. And for those who held that permit previously and all they did was shampoo and condition, they may continue to do so because it does not require a license or a permit.
Any
Can I
questions?
just add something to that? Sure.
I just wanted to add to, just for the gallery, just for understanding in 83-120 is that although we do not give a license for shampooing anymore, what we've done is we've taken that and realigned it into different topics in 83-120. That's what we're working on. And so I just want you to know we as educators are still going to be doing that. We're still going to be teaching that. It doesn't mean that we don't have to not teach shampooing. It just means that we're going to take it out and realign it in with different topics.
Yes. Is that?
Mr. Chairman, I think there were 2 issues that came up in the public comment section. One was the school size.
Oh,
We
yes.
can address. And then also Board Member Rivera had just a question regarding the effective date of the rules, so that I believe Colleen can handle it.
So for the square footage, the legislature has stated that we are not allowed to do square footage sinks or chairs, and so there will not be any square footage requirements for opening a school. Education and Examination is working on the current process and what that will look like, and so Brian correctly advised her to go speak to Ray afterwards to kind of see how the process is going to unfold. And
So
there
you'll
was-
get back with Mrs.
Yes.
Bird about this?
Mhm.
Okay.
But as far as what is the square footage requirement, there is none.
That-
No.
We are not allowed to, by rule or statute, create any sort of square footage, number of sinks or number of chairs.
You just have to have a, you just have to have a dedicated theory lecture room and then a lab.
There- yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. And then you said a second one.
The other one was just to on the timing, so the rules will go to our commission on December 15th
Yes.
for final adoption, and they can't be effective more than
Wi-
20
Once,
days.
yeah, so once it goes to our board, they'll adopt it. Our rules coordinator will get that all prepared, file that with the Texas Register. They're on a 2-week behind backlog, and then once it's on there, it will become effective 20 days after. I believe Pauline likes to use good solid numbers, so it's either going to be the 15th or the 1st, I think, or.
Do we have an estimated time?
Probably January
Probably
15th is the
15th,
date that we're
probably.
shooting for.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that will, I think it's fair and comfortable to say that it'll be in effect during the semester that you have coming up, so.
Okay,
But our commission will take it up at their December 15th meeting.
okay.
But you guys are comfortable with the proposed
So-
rules, yes?
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
So now, at this point,
You can't vote, but if y'all are all three comfortable with there being no changes from the comments and the rules as proposed, I'm going to take those forward to the board as they were published. The human trafficking portion does have a time, a statutory time that I have to adopt them by, so they have to move forward. So the full rule set is going to move forward. The rules for the human trafficking portion need to be adopted before January 1st. So,
And just so the gallery knows, we are working on that.
are we still using the, posting a sign in your school or something?
That will be,
Is that
yeah,
the
it'll be developed,
preferred?
and we'll have multiple signs as we
We're
talked at
working
the
on
last
it.
meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, and I wanted to ask one other question back to credit hour for Jesse. How, inspections, how, have you worked with them on how this is going to play out? On how they will be inspected?
the school for
Are you
credit
going
or
to talk to us about that, Mr. Pizarro? Will you address that, please?
Ray Pizarro, Director of the Education Examination Division. So I want to understand your question. You're saying how are we going to address the inspection of a credit hour school?
How will it, because it differs from clock hour in the documentation that has to be submitted to the inspector.
In a sense, we're still going to establish whether that student has successfully completed the required curriculum in the school. That's the big picture. Because we remember, it's the responsibility of the school in 8372. It says you must award hours to those, I don't have the rules in front of me, but it says something like that, that you shall award hours only to those who have completed the course, correct? So the responsibility is on the school, and you shall enter those hours in shears. So what I said earlier, with the credit hour, we're going to try to do something similar to that. Once we get to that point, those credit hour schools will be reporting those credits in shears, and then our inspectors are going to go and validate whether this individual in this particular school has completed that course. Instead of, the bottom line is we want to make sure they're completing cosmetology curriculum and not golf,
Okay.
or something like that. You see? Okay.
And if I remember correctly, we are going to be using the modular forms to do that. Module forms to do that.
The module completion forms, yes.
Yes? Yes.
Yes.
Remember, we're not going to mandate, because
That's right.
cosmetology is a little bit different in the curriculum. Remember, you guys talked about in the meeting, there are technical standards in the rules in 8320. That's not a curriculum. It's standards on how a school must teach. Other programs we regulate, we actually have the curriculum
Right.
in the rule, and all schools are teaching to that curriculum.
Right.
And cosmetology is not like that.
Right.
They're just standards that you have to adhere to those standards. And Alicia will teach her way, and Mary will teach her way.
Yes.
Agreed?
That's
Yes.
fine. I'm out of that area anyway.
Worried
about it anymore. But well, I'll always have concerns, but, okay. Thank you, Colleen, so very, very much. Okay. All right, now we need to make recommendations for agenda items for the advisory board. Do you have anything that you need to be addressing? Mr. Francis, anything you would like to see?
Mr. Chairman, we'll bring to the board an update on the implementation of the rules coming out of the commission meeting. We'll also, of course, have staff reports available, any work group discussions, particularly with the signs for human trafficking. I think that'll be worth and noteworthy of talking about the next meeting. Also, in talking with the Barbara Advisory Board this morning, we will begin our strategic planning process probably in March or April of next year. And so they thought it would be a good idea, and I agreed with them that having their meeting on the other side of those strategic planning sessions so we can share with the advisory board the information that's come from the
Okay.
industry, I think would be advisable. So probably looking at an early April meeting for the board.
So, what, based on what you're saying, our next meeting, which would be the next item here, are we going to do maybe a meeting in April?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And has a date been
We have
specifically
The
assigned?
2nd, 9th, and 16th right now as possible dates.
Okay.
That's going to be dictated by whenever we hold those strategic planning sessions, because we want to have that work for you to be able to digest.
Okay.
And we don't have those dates set yet,
Okay.
and that's on me.
In April. Okay.
But the month's secure. April's for sure.
I think
Will-
April's solid.
Will we be morning or afternoon, or is that too far down?
Afternoon. Two things. Afternoon, if it's the same day, but if it's on a different day, then you can have your choice.
Well, afternoon doesn't interfere with my rest time, so I want to make
Afternoon it is, Mr. Chairman.
All
That's
right,
awesome.
having said that, we're going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you so very much. Okay, we're over.